Hello everyone, welcome back to Trek-A-Day. The Star Trek movies have been released countless times on every format you can think of. And today we're going to take a look at what is, to date, my favorite release line of the Star Trek movies. The Director's Cut 2-disc DVD line. I love this line. This has always been my favorite since it started coming out. A great collection with a ton of special features, and it's just a fun set, even with the weird motion picture gold versus everything else being in the silver. That was always an odd choice in my mind, but let's take a look at this line of all the TOS and TNG era movies. Starting with the motion picture, the widescreen collection director's cut. A lot of these I just liked the set, having a big matching set of what for the longest time it were the Star Trek movies, and at the time for a lot of these this was the first time that a lot of the special features were released. There are some that were on other releases, individual disc releases, whatever, but this was for a long time the most comprehensive collection for the majority of these movies, and I always liked everything that was on here. And they were decent editions of the movie, especially for the time. These 2-disc sets. We have disc 1, the widescreen enhanced version, and they all had Dolby Digital 5.1 surround, subtitles, of course interactive menus and everything like that, and they all came with a variety of commentaries. A big group commentary here, and then there's also a text commentary by Michael Okuda. And then disc 2 has a bunch of retrospective documentaries, a lot of which have been carried over to later versions, especially the more recent Blu-ray and 4K releases of stuff. We have the Phase 2, The Lost Enterprise, A Bold New Enterprise, and Redirecting the Future. A bunch of trailers, theatrical, director's edition trailers. And this is interesting, that's not in every edition. We have 8 different TV commercials. I think those are fun to see the variety there. Additional scenes from the 1979 theatrical version, and 11 deleted scenes from the 1983 TV version, storyboards, and a promo spot for Enterprise, which was upcoming around the time these were releasing. Then we have The Wrath of Khan. The extended director's edition with commentaries, Nicholas Meyer, text commentaries, Designing Khan, visual effects, theatrical trailers. Just hours, each one of these, of extra features, which were so fun to explore. And again, for me, for a lot of them, for the first time, because before then I only had these on VHS, and even some of the other editions, Betamax or Laserdisc, a lot of those had maybe a trailer or a very short making of featurette. Not quite as many of these extensive features. Search for Spock. Lots of interviews with a lot of model making in this one. A lot of the visual effects are talked about here, and a bunch with the appearance of Klingons and the development of the language and culture around this time, moving into the TNG era of the Klingons. A lot of costume work, which is cool to see here, and a bunch surrounding the idea of the Genesis device and the Genesis planet. Trek 4, Voyage Home. A commentary with Shatner and Nimoy. Time Travel, The Art of the Possible. The Language of Whales, a Vulcan Primer, Kirk's Women, and a bunch of production featurettes that are really fun. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. not one of my favorite Star Trek movies, but there are a few things that I really love, a few very fantastic scenes in here that I think redeem the movie overall, even though it is a disappointment in comparison to 4 that came before it and 6 afterwards. But it's one of my favorites for a lot of the behind the scenes, the production featurettes, and a lot of the interviews. I think for me, a lot of times when a movie had some difficulties or some struggles or wasn't quite what it could have been, many times that makes for more fascinating behind the scenes than, say, a movie that had a very smooth production flow in general, and turned out great. It doesn't have a lot of detractors. Sometimes that can be interesting to see how they achieved such wonderful things, such near perfection, but sometimes when production was a little more difficult and the end product is a little more flawed, it can create a more interesting look into the production. Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. Still think this is like a perfect send-off movie to the original cast. Always loved 6. And this again has a lot of the same type of features, a tribute to DeForest Kelley, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in here in relation to the Cold War. Obviously, a lot of the elements that were brought into the plot of Star Trek 6, that's really an interesting thing that's brought into the movie-making process. This is, I think, one of the better ones in terms of special features in relation to a lot of the real-world elements, things that are going on at the time. Generations. This is a nice a tribute to Matt Jeffries, who the Jeffries tubes were named after, and a lot of really good like lineage stuff in relation to the Enterprise, just in general, the evolution of the Enterprise throughout the franchise, and a lot of tribute stuff to the Enterprise D. Good deleted scenes too, a couple of which, a lot of times deleted scenes, the scene itself might be fascinating, but you can kind of see where it maybe messed with the flow or the timing of some things, and maybe why it was cut, or you could see studio-wise where. I think this is one of the few that I think some of the deleted scenes, this and Nemesis, I think a lot of the deleted scenes probably should have been kept in some form. First Contact, fantastic movie. One of my 3 favorites and my wife's favorite. Wonder how many times I've seen this one over the years. It's got to be a ridiculous number. But this is interesting because I've always been a huge fan of the Borg. It's a lot of my favorite Star Trek stuff. I love Klingons and I like the Borg because they messed me up as a little kid. But I love Borg stuff. There's a lot in here related to that. I like a lot of stuff going into Zefram Cochrane, and a lot of the art and designs of the Enterprise E. It was interesting to see a lot of that, and this is an interesting set of features that I like on here, this scene deconstruction. I like getting a closer look into the actual production of specific scenes. It's pretty interesting. And we move to Insurrection. And Nemesis. Oh, Nemesis. Gotta talk about this one in depth at some point. I feel like, I guess the TNG movies more than anything. It'd be interesting to talk about a little bit more in depth. That might even be a topic that would be interesting for a more like conversational thing, like a live stream type thing. A lot of the TNG movies. Because some of these topics, as much as I would love to just talk about them in an informational sense, I think for a lot of my videos, I try to make them more conversational, less like I don't write scripts for any video. They're all very just off the cuff of my immediate reaction. Just let things flow naturally. Let things be a little more immediate and natural, and more emotionally truthful rather than more scholarly. I think I kind of like that structure for my videos for this type that we're doing on the channel. So that's kind of a topic that I feel like has been talked about so much, the TNG movies, what went well, what went wrong, having different opinions in a more analytical sense, something that breaks things down. I think I'd like that be more of a topic that's a little more conversational, a little more casual. But yeah, Nemesis, this is a lot of great, this is one of my other favorites, this and 5. A lot of the ones, again, that had some more issues and didn't quite turn out perfect, I think have some of the more interesting behind the scenes. A lot of commentaries, production, Nemesis Revisited, directing Nemesis, a lot of storyboard stuff, a lot of shooting the action sequences, some interesting looks into the Romulan Empire and things that were fleshed out either for the first time or for the first time on screen. Some stuff within Nemesis, a lot of really interesting behind the scenes features for that in general. And anyway, I just really like this set. I think this is a great DVD set. I think to this day it's still a fantastic set to have. And another nice thing is that these are very common to come by. They are very affordable. You can complete this entire set pretty easily for like 20-30 bucks if you keep an eye out. So it's a great set, tons of extra features and decent quality as far as DVD release. And for a lot of these, I think they are maybe don't match the presentation of like a 4K release or whatever, but for me, I like these releases, and these are the kind of releases that I love having on like a CRT anyway, versus up on the projector. But just I think these are fun. My favorite release line of those movies, and I'd love to hear what's your favorite set, what your favorite release for the TOS and TNG era movies.